For decades, a peculiar assumption has floated across the Atlantic, one that some Americans hold with the same certainty they reserve for apple pie, Hollywood, and the belief that everything must eventually aspire to the American dream. On first glance, the idea seems harmless, even optimistic. Surely the rest of the world secretly longs for a suburban home, a corporate ladder to climb, and a sleek sports car parked out front. But as it turns out, reality in Britain is delightfully different. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Picture, if you will, a wide-eyed American tourist stepping off a train at London Paddington, armed with an oversized coffee, a smartphone GPS, and the quiet expectation that everyone they meet dreams of their version of success. They are prepared for nods of agreement, polite envy, and perhaps a few envious gasps. Instead, they are greeted with something completely unexpected: calm, understated faces, lightly sarcastic remarks, and the faint aroma of baked beans from a nearby cafe. Here, ambition is measured differently. Success is subtle, and their dream is politely ignored. The first clue that something has gone awry comes in conversations. Americans, bursting with enthusiasm, attempt to explain the virtues of the American dream. The sprawling house, the promotion every few years, the glorious personal freedom to spend, work, and conquer. The British response is often a quiet smile, a raised eyebrow, or the almost imperceptible chuckle of someone who has already sussed out the folly of such assumptions. A 5-day workweek is preferred over a 60-hour grind, tea breaks are revered, and weekends are sacred. Life is a series of small victories, not a perpetual race toward a mythical finish line. Then there's housing. Americans, convinced that everyone everywhere dreams of owning a detached home with a white picket fence, are baffled by British priorities. Here, many are perfectly content with modest flats, communal gardens, and the occasional row of semi-detached houses. Space is a luxury, not a requirement. Location, community, and convenience often outweigh square footage. For some visitors, it's almost offensive, not in a rude way, but in the sense that their assumptions are being quietly, persistently challenged. The misunderstanding extends into the workplace. In the United States, climbing the corporate ladder is almost a civic duty. Promotions are badges of honor. Overtime is a sign of commitment, and weekends are occasionally optional. In the UK, the concept of work-life balance is not a buzzword, it's a cultural expectation. British workers value time off, social lives, and mental well-being over relentless professional advancement. To Americans, this can feel almost scandalous. They witness colleagues leaving the office promptly at 5:30, holidays taken without guilt, and a collective shrug at overtime requests. It's not laziness, it's perspective, and it's profoundly disarming. Social systems also confound expectations. When Americans discuss the perks of healthcare, pensions, and government support, many assume envy will follow. They expect gasps at the generosity of the NHS or polite admiration for social benefits. Yet British reactions are rarely what Americans expect. Complaints about minor delays, paperwork, or bureaucracy abound. People grumble, yes, but there is rarely awe or aspiration tied to these systems. The dream is not universal. It is not sought after. Instead, there is a quiet, practical acceptance. Life is lived, support is provided, and the focus remains on personal contentment rather than accumulation. Education, too, offers an amusing divergence. Americans often emphasize achievement, grades, and the relentless pursuit of accolades. In the UK, learning is valued, but so too is balance, curiosity, and the small joys that accompany knowledge. Students may choose pathways that prioritize happiness, creativity, or personal development over prestige alone. The notion that everyone dreams of a high-flying career is, to many Brits, quaint, a little naive, and occasionally hilarious. Then comes the cultural nuance that truly baffles visitors: British humor. Dry, understated, ironic, and often self-deprecating, it serves as both shield and mirror. Americans, expecting admiration or visible awe, are often met with sarcasm, understatement, or polite teasing. Compliments are deflected, ambition is quietly mocked, and exaggeration is met with raised eyebrows. The lesson is subtle but clear. British priorities do not revolve around the American dream. They revolve around moderation, wit, and practical satisfaction. Ironically, this realization often leaves American visitors in a kind of cultural limbo. They want to be admired, to inspire envy, to share their dream, but they are met with polite indifference. Not rudeness, but an almost infuriating calm. People are not striving for a giant house, a corner office, or a sports car. They are striving for small joys, security, and a life lived with quiet dignity. The idea that happiness requires constant accumulation or achievement is to them amusingly unnecessary. Of course, not all British people dismiss ambition outright. Many chase career goals, personal projects, or creative achievements, but the scale, urgency, and moral weight assigned to these pursuits differ. Life is less a relentless chase and more a series of choices guided by contentment, relationships, and personal balance. And this is precisely the moment that Americans pause, blink, and reconsider everything they thought they knew about global aspirations. As they walk through London's bustling streets, sip tea in countryside cottages, or navigate the polite chaos of a tube train at rush hour, a quiet revelation settles in. The world does not universally aspire to the American dream. It has other dreams, subtler ones, less flashy, yet no less fulfilling. Some are about time with family, others about career satisfaction without sacrifice, some about community, leisure, or personal growth. And for many Americans, this is a revelation almost as shocking as stepping onto a British train that actually arrives on time. And yet, even as the truth dawns, Americans often cling to their assumptions, politely nodding, smiling, or making light jokes about cultural differences. It is human nature to view one's own perspective as universal, to assume others will dream the same dreams. But in Britain, that assumption meets quiet resistance. A shrug, a witty remark, a subtle eye roll. The dream is theirs alone, and here, in this small island nation, the lesson is delivered with understated precision. Not everyone wants what you want, and that's perfectly fine. By the end of their journey, the American visitor leaves not with envy or despair, but with bemusement and reflection. They have glimpsed a different approach to life, one that values balance over ambition, subtleties over spectacle, and contentment over accumulation. The American dream remains a compelling story, but it is no longer universal. Britain has quietly, politely, and very effectively shown that happiness wears many faces, and that sometimes the loudest ambition is simply to live well without fanfare. And as they return home, they carry a new question with them, one that lingers longer than any souvenir or photograph. If the world does not aspire to the American dream, what might we be missing? But just when Americans think they've fully understood the British approach to life, the subtle lessons continue to pile up. It's not just about rejecting the American dream, it's about what replaces it. Instead of endless ambition, there's a celebration of small victories. A perfectly brewed cup of tea, a weekend walk along the Thames, or a chat with neighbors without checking your calendar. To an American visitor, it feels almost revolutionary. Success isn't measured in square footage or corporate titles, it's measured in contentment, relationships, and the quiet mastery of everyday life. Then comes the humor. The British have an uncanny way of pointing out absurdities without raising their voices. Americans who expect admiration for flashy accomplishments are instead met with irony, understatement, and the occasional deadpan remark. It's both confusing and enlightening. The lesson is simple. The world doesn't owe you validation. You may not be chasing the dream everyone else supposedly dreams of, but that doesn't mean your life is any less fulfilling. By the time visitors return home, they often carry a mix of amusement and admiration. They realize that happiness is not one size fits all, and that sometimes the pursuit of a quieter, subtler life is not just sensible, it's enviable. And as they tell friends and family about the polite indifference, the work-life balance, and the understated wit, they start to see a truth that had eluded them. Perhaps the American dream is compelling, but it's far from universal, and that, in itself, is a lesson worth taking home.